Welcome to this session looking at Geographical Enquiry. We're coming towards the end of the skills unit now. And the key point behind this is to understand the process of inquiry and how it can be examined. And whilst I'm talking your way through this, continuously think about the work you did in Seaford and the coursework you wrote up. So, there is a basic process of inquiry. The first thing you have to do is identify a question which you then set a hypothesis towards. Okay, once you've got your hypothesis, you then establish a sequence to actually investigate those issues, and you'd find out a range of information looking at primary and secondary data. You then figure out how you can go about presenting it. So you extract and interpret the information, and then you present it in a variety of different ways, which would include drawings, photographs, maps, diagrams, tables, and secondary research as well, which is important. And then you just go through the process by then analysing the data, figuring out how those pieces of analysis relate to your hypothesis, conclude it, and then evaluate its success and weaknesses. So, think about how those ideas relate to Seaford. Now, the key thing you need to think about is how you'd go about investigating an issue. So the example on the board here, we've got is how has service provision, shops and facilities changed in Selsdon over time? So the question that you could set yourself is, right, we've got the issue, so let's set ourselves a hypothesis. In Selsdon, shops have got larger with smaller shops closing down. There is a hypothesis. Okay, so we're going to test to see whether shops have got larger. So how would we go about doing that? Well, the basic way would be to find some primary data by going asking questionnaires to people about how they think shopping has changed, and then you do secondary data probably by going to the library and collecting some old maps to actually look at how it's changed over time. This is a lot easier now that we've got the internet, because you can find out most of this information online, and therefore it's much easier to do. Now, the key thing is identifying that clear hypothesis and then investigating the task. So, here's an example of exam question. We've got two different questions. You've got to study the resource booklet and the pyramid, which I'm going to show you in a second. And what you need to do is describe the research that you'd carry out to investigate how Swansea population pyramid is typical of a seaside resort, or as the foundation is typical of the towns that are similar size. So we need to find out issues around it. Okay, so there is a population pyramid. You can tell from it that this is a pyramid which has some issues, and now we need to think about how we can actually then apply that down. So how would you go about doing it? Well, the first thing you'd actually do is investigate the size of Swanage using websites such as National Statistics. You then search Google Earth to find other seaside resorts in the UK, so you can then have that comparison. And then you'd think about how those two resorts link together. So you might compare Brighton to, I don't know, Weston-super-Mare or something like that. You then gather the data. Now you're going to gather primary data, but we're testing to see whether it's comparable. So you're going to gather primary data, but you also might want to gather some secondary data as well, looking at house prices and change over time and old maps, so that you can actually see those patterns quite clearly. Now, that's the key. If you can establish those process of inquiry, that will enable you to get to the bottom of the issue very quickly.